My name is Robin Whitfield. I've lived in Grenada since 1997. I've been an artist most of my life. My mother's an artist, and I pursued art at Delta State. I actually became a painter. Studied with a painting professor there, really well known for working with color in the landscape, which is really why I chose to go there. Well, while I was a senior at Delta State, the school system here sought me out and asked me to paint murals in their school system. So I came over here. I figured, it's a fun first job, and it seems like a cool town. I'd actually never been here while I was at Delta State. Got here, was charmed, and ended up spending 4 or 5 years on that project. I really thought it was just going to be a few-month kind of thing, but they kept adding more and more. I painted the entire interior of the middle school here. So after that project, I'd kind of discovered the swamp down the street from my studio in downtown Grenada, and I'd fallen in love already. So ever since then, I have been exploring not only that swamp, but all the public land in the area. Now, I mention all that because that is I do have a studio right off the square, but it's really the forest and the swamps and the rivers that are my actual working studio. That's where I go. I take my kayak, typically, or sometimes I'll go on foot, whatever subject I'm looking for. Water is often is what's drawing me in. I'm looking really for relationships of things, but water is always just sort of a common denominator for things in nature. That everything has a relationship to water. So I'm looking for birds, plants, seasons, kind of surprises. So I go out, and sometimes I'll be there all day just looking for that something. I don't even know what I'm looking for, but sometimes I'll do 5 or 6 paintings in a day. Sometimes I'll just do one. Sometimes I'll do drawings. I rub with mud and earth and plants. Sometimes I'm doing watercolor. But it's always about the relationships I find in nature. And of course, I guess on the page, I'm also looking for relationships, color, texture, shape. Those things interest me. I'm fairly abstract. Grenada offers something completely different from the Delta where I studied. It has trees, and those trees offer really nice contrasting, shady nooks, which that is what I've fallen in love with. We have swamps and rivers, the subjects that have become my true focus. I didn't know that's what I wanted when I got here, but now that I'm here, that has become really my life's work, is to explore and understand the shapes. I mean, I didn't know places had such specific shapes, but places do. They have shapes that are unique to them, colors that are unique to them. And that is what I'm most interested in, trying to refine that, find its essence, finding all these relationships, not only visually, but as a naturalist, I like to try to find actually how it works in the living world, but then also trying to capture that on paper with shapes, colors, textures. And that's what holds me here, because I keep going back to the same places over and over, but it's never the same. It's always exciting, always different, and always gives me an adventure. I mean, I can do this every day, day in and day out, and it's always the fullest adventure I can have. In fact, I rarely leave the area. I used to travel all the time. I've gotten to where I rarely travel because I don't want to miss anything here.
Tell me about how you found your studio and your space in Grenada and how that came about.
When I first moved to Grenada, I started renting a room in one of the big old houses on Main Street, which I always liked living in places with character. But it was small. I was really tired of renting and tired of being somewhere so confined. And a buddy I had met had just bought a building right off the square and wanted me to look at it. And I was thinking, I was just gonna, I guess, humor him by looking at it. But as soon as I saw it, I was thinking, oh, this is my space. It was in actually really good shape. It didn't really have any fanciness or amenities that hadn't been ever lived in. Well, maybe it had been lived in a long time ago, but it had been abandoned for 15 years. But I was hooked, so I found a way to get it, and have been there ever since. And it's always in some sort of, it is still certainly in, it still has lots of character, let's put it that way. I've only been able to do so much remodeling, and I do a little bit as I see what I need to do, I do it. As for art and artists downtown, there are 3 for sure that I can think of. Myself, my neighbor Lee, who works on bikes, and a friend of mine who's largely self-taught and does a variety of, I would kind of like folk art, functional art, really anything that someone will pay her to do. She's a very creative lady. But there is a wonderful opportunity for artists down here. I mean, every creative person I know in town does come downtown at some point to take pictures. I see them out wandering with cameras. I see people occasionally set up with an easel. That's not that often, but because when they do it, I really notice. But it is a draw to people who are creative. They're just not down here permanently.
What do you think it would take to bring more artists downtown?
I know another art friend of mine here in town has been looking for a space downtown since she moved here almost 10 years ago. And what has kept her from being downtown is she cannot find a space to rent. Everything is either a church, a law office, too bad, it's in too bad a shape to be in at all, or it is just ridiculously expensive to rent, and it doesn't offer with the rent. An artist, she's just needing a studio space on top of all of her other bills, separate from her home, and she can't afford the spaces here that are available are generally for an apartment, and so she can't afford to rent an apartment space when it's just, she needs something cheap enough that she can not have to make her work too expensive, or that she can afford without too much pressure. So I know with her frustration and trying to find a place downtown, she's just given up and made a bedroom in her home, her studio. But I think she's not the only artist I've heard of that's been looking for space downtown. They just can't find it. It's not here.
Is there the opportunity for spaces to be created from the buildings that are in downtown Grenada?
I think so. I walk around all the time. I walk around each evening actually with my dogs, and I'm looking at the spaces, asking myself why this is not already a creative, vibrant community, because it seems like the perfect place. It's quiet, isolated, but it's got ambience, it's beautiful, it's got everything, but they're just not here. And so I ask myself why. I can see that there's buildings, but just from living down here, I know enough about it now to realize that they're either in very bad shape and they need some work, or someone's holding on to them and they don't, I guess they're waiting for someone who can pay a lot of money, or they have a church in them or an office, and so they're not available. But the buildings are here and the spaces are here. They just, I guess, need to be, and there needs to be a vision for that's what this is about. I've always thought downtown should be the cultural, creative center of maybe not even just Grenada, but the region, because we're right off the interstate. It's the perfect place to have a creative culture, because people could, zoom right here, right off the interstate, have an interesting experience, see some things, maybe have a nice meal, a nice beer, meet interesting people, and then zoom right home. An hour later, they're ready to get back on the road, or even our own town. This is a great place to walk, to look. You want to walk in an interesting place. When you're walking or exercising, sometimes it makes it easier if you have interesting things to distract your mind. I do see people walking down here a good bit in the evening. But if there were interesting things to look at in the windows, people outside doing interesting things, I think it would be a draw for the town, because they would have something to talk about, look at, think about while they were maybe doing other things.
Where do you sell your art now?
Well, selling my art, I've always wanted, I'm a big believer in your art should be for your own people. I like to change people's ideas about where they live with my paintings. I want them to see nature, and I've tried for many years to sell to Grenada. But I guess because of a lack of places to show, in my own studio it has been a gallery at one time, but no one ever came into the doors. And so you just can't, and I don't paint in my studio anyway, so I just couldn't, validate having it open all the time. So I had to seek places outside Grenada. Now my best, so far, who has sold the most of my work are delta towns. I guess because my subject is largely bottomland swamp or bottomland forest rivers, my subject matter really does resonate with Delta folk. And I do have some relationships built by having gone to Delta State University. So that has definitely been a good market for me. I sell some things off the internet. Lately I've been showing in other parts of the state and have sold well in all these places. So it leads me to believe I could make a good living here in Grenada if I had a place to show. People could see it. But I'm waiting for the time when people, I need a way for them to come to me in my studio. And I think that time is coming. Enough people are talking about things, trying to focus their energies downtown, and I think it's going to happen. As far as having artists come and be downtown, stay downtown, thrive downtown, I think at this point it's going to be a matter of recruiting them. You know, I think a lot of people have already looked here that live here. And so it'll be a matter of us coming together, those of us who already live here. And there aren't that many artists, but there's enough where we could probably maybe create a critical mass. But we would have to have a vision, and that vision would have to be realistic. I mean, you know, we're at spaces we can afford or events that can realistically draw art buyers. So far, I've never been involved with any sorts of events that have really drawn people who can pay the prices of real art. But I think it's possible. I mean, once again, it's just a matter of having a shared vision with not just artists, but the people in your town have to share that vision and want that. And if we want a downtown to be a cultural and creative center, we are really going to have to come together, not just as the artist in the community, but as the community as a whole, and come up with a way to make things affordable for the artist, and then figure out ways to really have people know that they are down there, to draw them in with events. And it's going to take some work, because people have said that was there before. People get there and it's really not there. That they just said it was there. And so we've kind of have some things against us, but I think we could turn that around. And I think it's going to be a matter of we actually have to go out and recruit. I think if we let especially younger people know, we've got a wonderful artistic university right down the road. It's where I went, and I was recruited to Grenada by the community. They wanted an artist, needed an artist. I got here and ended up loving it. I certainly didn't mean to stay. I just stayed because I couldn't leave. I'm still in that position. I love it. I love living here. It's wonderfully positioned for the artist. We're near Memphis. We're near Jackson. We're near Oxford. We're near the Delta. We're near so many things and have so much access, yet we're still kind of isolated. It's fairly affordable. It's everything an artist wants and needs, really, other than having a buying audience or a viewing audience, an interested audience. But I think that's just a matter of cultivation and just getting creative. I think we can do it.
I have a question.